For the people who don't know,
Yeah.
maybe we could do a little overview of who Hal was.
Hal Wilner invented something that we all think is just kind of normal, which is the idea of like a tribute concert or a tribute record where you have all different kind of people you wouldn't expect doing something, what they call cross-genre or whatever like that. In 1980, when Hal was in his early 20s, he had this idea to do a Nina Roder record.
Okay.
And he did a record, and it's like, you know, it's the best. It's Jackie Byard. It's Carla Bley. It's, you know, David Amram. You know, all these unbelievable jazz musicians. Muhal Richard Abrams. You know, just incredible musicians. But he got, not the whole band Blondie, but Debbie Harry and Chris Stein, who are like Blondie.
Sure.
So and Blondie was, you understand, Blondie was like one of the biggest bands in the world. In the world, not just the United States. I mean, take a look, man, how many records Blondie sold.
Sure.
He gets them on this record. The first song is Jackie Byard. Muhal's on it. This is 1980, man. No one had ever thought like. And Hal just had the greatest ears, but completely unconventional the way he approached everything about life.
Sure.
Because it wasn't just music with him. It was, he knew every poetry, and he knew all the poets, and he knew all the filmmakers, and he worked at Saturday Night Live, so he was part of that comedy world. He knew so much about comedy. And so that was a huge influence. When I heard this record, the Nina Roder record, it was the first summer after my first year of college. And I go to my friend's house, Cecilia Engelhardt, and there were 3 sisters. Dad's a jazz musician, an instrument maker, and he had the hippest records. He just had the hippest Brazilian records, the hippest jazz records, hippest Horace Silver records. He's like, hey man, he still says, hey man, check this record out. And he puts it on. And it was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting to hear. Like this idea of it's all one thing. Mm-hmm. Like you could hear Jackie Byard, and you could hear a Carla arrangement, and you could hear a Muhal arrangement. Bill Frisell's on it. Check this out. Here's how people used to say Hal could see around corners. It's Bill Frisell's first record recording, real recording, I think. I think he had recorded his first. And know who else is their first real recording? Wynton and Branford Marsalis.
Wow.
Because
on this Nino Roder thing you're talking about?
Yes.
That's
because
crazy.
William Fisher did an arrangement. Do you know who William Fisher was? He might still be alive.
No.
He was one of the great Atlantic arrangers.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the classic Atlantic arrangers, wrote a lot of hits, very great. And Hal had worked for Joel Dorn, who was another famous producer, who has a staff producer at Atlantic, who did all the Yusuf Lateef records and Fathead Newman records and Rassan records. That's all Joel Dorn. Mm-hmm. Joel begat begat Hal. So Hal hired William Fisher. It's like, oh, get a record. Because William Fisher was the guy, like, you know, get called for, like, you know, Roberta Flack records and that stuff. But he was a very creative guy, you know. Sure. But he also did stuff for Cannonball. He was a very great futuristic writer. And I think the story, it must be, because I know he went to school with Ellis Marsalis and Alvin Batiste. So he must have been like, oh, because why else would he call him? He's like, call Ellis's kids. They're like, they just got to town. They're amazing. Give them a break.
Sure.
I'm sure I've never asked those guys about it, but I'm sure when I see them, I will. It'll be interesting to ask. But anyway, that's Hal. And I heard this music, and I'm like, yeah. Like, just like when I heard Defunct. You know, growing up in Berkeley, we had all this music. We had avant-garde jazz and swing jazz and Jimi Hendrix and Latin music, and we had all this stuff to listen to. But they were all like different people playing them.
Sure.
In a different place. And I heard Defunct, and I was like, whoa, it's all that stuff. It's avant-garde jazz, it's Hendrix, it's swinging, it's punk rock, it's Latin music, you know? And this idea of like, you just let the music, you know, why wouldn't you want to have all this stuff in your music? Yeah. Yeah, so that's who Hal was. He just let everything happen in his music. And then he started using me for, you know, arranging. And he found out, and he had like people he liked. And I emptied huge show, you know. And the thing about him, you'd empty a show and it'd be like, whatever, U2 and Elton John, and it could be anybody. Or it could be, Henry Grimes.
Sure.
Like you do the show, it'd be the same show, you know. Hal would be the only guy that would do that. Like, that's the thing about Hal. There's other people who do that, but they don't really love jazz. They say they do, and I'm not saying like in a disparaging way. I'm just saying like, no, you don't love jazz the way you love Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
That's loving jazz.
Yeah.
When it's like, you understand it. And it's a thing, maybe not everyone feels it that way, but Hal felt it that way.
Sure.
Hal really felt that, like that improv, he loved improvisation. So anyway, and it was really important to me because I got paid for the things I did with him.
Sure.
Because that's the whole thing. He'd be like, you know, why don't you just, you know, why don't you do, like, if, yeah, you could do the same kind of music, but if you have, like, Bono. Do you know about the U2 record, the live U2 show?
No.
This is such a good, so I got arrangements on a U2 record.
Okay.
That's out now. But it's the Sex Mob Orchestra and the Sun Ra Orchestra together, live with U2.
With U2.
Okay?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it's amazing. So it was a total amazing Hal thing. So, you know, sometimes I work a lot, and sometimes I don't. And that's just part of being a musician. So I was working a lot because I had this gig with my friend Gina Gershon, who's a famous actress. You know, she's an old friend from college. Wow. And she got a show at, what's the place, you know, the Carlisle.
Okay.
And she asked me to put together a band. I put together this awesome band for her with Jerome Jennings and Brad Jones and Eli. Oh, I can't remember just spacing on Eli's last name. Eli from Saturday Night Live. Oh, come on. I'm going to have to get back. I'm so embarrassed I can't remember his name right now. But he is so great. Eli Jams. That's his, you can email him there. Anyway, so I get a phone call. And Hal like was famous for like not picking up the phone or answering. But he was also famous for calling you at like 1:32 in the morning. So I'm like kind of spaced out. I've been doing the show at the Carlisle, like watching some TV. See the phone rings like 1:30 in the morning. Hal. Well, when Hal calls, you pick up because he's not. If he's calling you 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
What are you, Steven? What are you doing on Sunday and Monday? I said, man, Hal, this is great. I'm doing the show with Gina, but we have Sunday and Monday off. It's like, okay, I might have a gig for us with you too, and I think I'm gonna get the Sun Ra Orchestra too. So just see if you can get it. Okay. I'm like, all right, Hal, let me know. Okay, well, blah blah blah. I think we're gonna get this. That's what he so next day I, call lawyers. It's like, yeah, I think it's gonna happen. Hal's got to get the Sun Ra guys. Of course, it's total chaos. He does end up getting because it's Hal. Like he says he can do it, and it turns out like he's told you too that he could do it. And he finds out they're in Australia. I didn't know they were in Australia. He's freaking out. He thought we promised U2 because U2 was like, oh, they would always call Hal for things, and they say, oh, we're doing a big show. It's a free show at the Apollo for like Sirius satellite. It wasn't like a ticketed show, a special event. Oh, we're going to use horns, and Hal's like, oh, well, everyone uses horns at the Apollo, so if you're going to use horns, you have to use Sun Ra. And they were like, who's that? Because they're from Ireland. They were like poor kids from Ireland. How they, by the time they would know about Sun Ra, they were too rich to know about Sun Ra.
Right. Yeah. I'd be surprised if Bono was like, well, we got to get Sun Ra's orchestra on this. Or,
no, it was total Hal. Yeah. And he said, and they were like, okay, Hal, if you say we got to get, that's what we're going to do. Then like Bono says, let it be done. We're getting Sun Ra. And he says, you pull in your guys, and then we'll Sun Ra's guys, we'll match them up. Because also he knew that way it could still sound tight like a rock and roll horn section. Mm-hmm. Like get me people. I got a great band. I got Frank Green on lead trumpet, and I got Bree on second trumpet, and I got Curtis Folks and Earl McIntyre and Lakeisha Benjamin on alto. James Carter. We flew in James Carter, of course. Hal's like, oh, I got to get James because Hal just loved. I mean, you know who loved James? Lou Reed loved James Carter. We were going to get it. Yeah, if Lou hadn't died, we would have got him to make a big band record with James Carter. He wanted to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, Brigham on baritone. And then we had and then Hal somehow figures out how to get 5 Sun Ra guys back from Australia in time to do this, including Marshall. And, Marshall's 95, maybe he's 93 at that point. And I knew he just got back from Australia. And I said, you know what? I had to print out, of course, I'm doing everything. It's all last minute, printing all these parts out, taping them up. And I was like, oh, man, I'm not going to give Marshall parts, man. I'm just going to let him blow, And I said, just in case I'll print parts, but I'm not going to tape them. There's too much shit, all this long stuff to do. And the show up, Marshall's like, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've met him before through How Things. He's the nicest guy. And through other stuff, through CMS. We got some music from me. I said to him, Marshall, you know, you can just blow, man. You don't have to read charts. He's like, no, I want charts, Steven. Fuck, I got tape up charts from Marshall. Puts on his glasses, you know. Because the funny thing about other thing is like, so certain keys, like transpose, like guitar keys transpose to very weird keys for alto and baritone.
Sure.
Like a lot of sharps.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I'm not gonna make Marshall read all this stuff. Because even with simple music, you got 6 sharps on it. I was like, oh. Anyway, of course he played great. And what a character. And what did this come from? How did we get to the Sun Ra story?
Well, you were talking about how, and then putting together the U2 concert.
Oh, well, I guess I was saying it was the last thing I did with him, but that's coming out. It's like it actually is out. They're supposed to send it to me, but it's only available if you join the U2 fan club.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's kind of cool, man, because of how, like, if I remember the first time I worked with U2, he had called me. We were doing this big benefit. They were just doing their own thing. I was, you know, working with the band. He comes in. Yeah, sorry. She says to me, "Can you go to the next room? U2's having, like, you know, they're fighting about how to do this David Bowie song, and we need you to come in and like kind of mediate." I don't know these guys. I walk in, I'm like, oh, okay, because they probably said, bring in your musical, because one guy's saying he's right, one guy's saying he's right, you know, obviously. So I introduced himself, and I said, okay, let's just get this out of the way. Like, so, do I say like, do I say Edge, you're fucking up, or do I say the Edge, you're fucking up? And he says, whatever you want. I said, okay, because I gotta know how to do this. And I just said, like, okay, like, you know, like, you know. But they was having an art, you know, it's a funny thing with people who don't think of music scientifically.
Yeah.
It's all feels. So for them, they might not be able to tell the difference between 4 bars and 6 bars, or 4 bars and 8 bars. It could seem like literally exactly the same. They can be like, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Because they're not counting it. It's like a feeling that comes to them, and then they get the next feeling.
Right.
So you don't have this like science thing to like help you out.
Sure.
So anyway, we worked it out.
Yeah.